Alright, so this is the FlameCon 2018 vlog. Ooh. That's my enthusiasm because I'm going through some lovely post-con depression right now. Obviously because this is one of my favorite cons during the year, or not during the year, how else do I say that? This is my favorite con when it's not the year, next year. Yeah, I went to school for art, not English. But anyway, it is one of my favorite conventions to go to, you know, during the, I don't know what I'm saying. Anyway, so it is one of my favorite cons, next to, Monsterpalooza. So it's one of my favorites. And yeah, I'm using that and all that stuff. So I should talk. Anyway, so this year it was at the Sheraton in Times Square rather than the Marriott in Brooklyn, and it like the convention dealie, the main room, the dealer's room, the vent of them was double the size, which was awesome. At the same time, people said they'd come back and they didn't come back to my table. I'm not mad, it's fine. I'm just fucking with you. I heard several times from several different people that the lighting in there was homophobic. I remember I got in there, like, to set up Sunday, wow, I was late, Saturday morning, and I was like, why is it so kind of dim? You know, because it's like, the ceilings were super, super high, and then they had this weird thing going on where, like, the lights would change and go through all the colors of the goddamn rainbow. So, like, sometimes you're there and you're like, okay, once it's hitting, like the blues and stuff, it starts to get dark and, like, greens. But once it hits, like, that fuchsia color, it's like, oh, the room feels brighter again, you know? Plus, again, like I said, like, the ceilings were super, super high. Whereas in the Brooklyn one, the supers were lower. Wow. The ceiling was lower, so the lights seemed much more like, you know, like, wow, kind of stuff. So that was kind of like the reason why, not that I have a preference on which side of the table to be on, but knowing how I am, I probably would have preferenced to be on the right side of the table, just because there's extra space. I'm a fucking, like, you know, space queen, you know, if that makes any sense. Space queen. This is what I'm doing. Swimming through the air. But I decided to be on the left side of the table because there was more, like, direct light. And, you know, I didn't know, like, right where we were set up, there was a fucking outlet. And I was like, damn it. Because I was like, usually there isn't, you know, all that stuff. So if I knew there was going to be a fucking outlet, I would have brought some fucking lights. So when I did makeup, you know, it wasn't just like, okay, I'm gonna do the makeup, and at one point, just shine the flashlight into Paul's face. I was like, alright, I'm gonna shine this flashlight, close your eyes. You know, I'm like, okay, let me fix that, you know. Jesus Christ. So, yeah, once that survey comes out, I'll be like, guys, if, like, you have better lighting. But that was, like, one of the main things, like, a little bit better lighting. But other than that, like I said, it's twice the size, it's pretty cool. Of course, again, I chose to get, like, the larger space. This time they were known as the premier tables, which makes us sound so fucking fancy. And we got a pretty good damn spot, which was kind of, like, right, like, by the corner, in between were, like, the two sections, because there was, like, little stairs that go up to, like, the very end section there. We were kind of, like, you know, right there towards the corner, so when people kind of did rounds, they would always come by and see us and all that stuff. And I like the big tables. Again, like I said, I'm a space queen as I swim through the air. And also, like, it's like, again, besides it being more space, it's just that, like, it's just more freedom. It has to do with space, but it's just that because the other ones are 6-foot spaces, and then you got your neighbor, like, bam, right there, and another neighbor, bam, right behind you. And again, I'm the kind of person where, like, I'm standing most of the time, you know? Like, I'm standing, I'm just kind of like da-da-da, and like I said, just doing, like, the little makeup demo, and, like, again, more space. Because here, we had, like, the wall, I didn't have to bring, like, my banner stand, I just taped it to the wall, and every so often it would fall down, and I'd put it back up, that kind of stuff. I didn't have to, like, shove all, like, my, you know, extra bags under the table, and except for like the end of the evening, like I had it behind me, so if someone wanted to buy a shirt, I'm not just like, where the fuck? Okay, hold on, what shirt do you need? You know, it was just like, cool, turn around, grab the shirt, gotcha, here you go, kind of stuff. You know, it was just, again, more flexibility and all that stuff. Again, it's worth it. Like, the price is a lot more. It's like double the price of the 6-foot one. But when, you know, especially if you use it with like a buddy, like I did, you know, you go halvesies on it, it's not that bad. And how this con is, and how people are so open and like fucking nice and caring and shit, and how people just are like, yeah, your art's weird, I like it. You know, like, it's not hard to kind of like break even with, like, you know, your table, because there are other cons where I'm just like, I'm just there like, cool, insults, you know, like the whole thing of like, how the fuck do I do horror conventions and zombie conventions, and yet my stuff doesn't like match it, it's disgusting to people, or whatever awful comments people will make. But here, they're just like, okay, it's weird, but, you know, they'll like look at everything else, they're like, but I see your aesthetic, like, this is what you do, okay, you know. I even had this guy who like saw like my fetus paperweight, and he was just like, ah, and oh man, it just so happened that like Paul and Masami had stepped away from the table, and I really wish they were there, because it was a great response where like his friend was like, hey man, look at this, he's like, oh, what is that, ah, and then like spun around and then walked away. And then I found it funny. I always find it funny whenever people have these like reactions to my work, because I know it is very like provoking. It's, you know, it's the shock value of it. I know it's not something that everyone's gonna like, you know, but then again, there are times where it's like, all right, you don't have to like fucking insult me as a person, for God's sakes. Like, I've gone at those other cons. But the guy, like, he was just like, oh shit, but then like, you know, I'm cracking up. Like I said, I find it funny. I don't get offended, you know, because please, I went to art school. You don't really get offended when people shit on your art or react to your art a certain way. But the guy comes back to me, and he just like, after he had his moment to kind of like woosah or something, he comes to me like behind my table and like talked to me, and he was just kind of like, hey, I just want to let you know, like, I don't hate your art, I'm sorry to react like that. And I was like, dude, it's fine. But he was just pretty much like, no, I don't want you to think that like me reacting like that means like a negative reaction towards your art. He was like, no, just seeing the little thing, he's like, I don't know what it is, it just gives me like this kind of like reaction. He's like, I'm not saying your art is terrible, I'm not saying don't do it, you know. He was just kind of like, and I get it. I told him like, no, dude, like, I'm not cool with like bugs and spiders and shit, but people are like, well, I want to buy this bug spider thing in resin. I'm just like, ah! You know, like, I see it, I'm just like, oh, get it away, oh my god, you know. So then I get it, and it was very nice of him to have come back and like apologize, not that he needed to, but it's very nice of that, because again, I'm used to just people loving to shit on what I do, that I'm just like, that's a normal reaction, right? Telling me to go kill myself. Oh, okay. Rather than like the loving comments I got at this one, where people are like, oh, I love your aesthetic, or like, hey, like, this is very different, or like, oh, sweet, someone's doing horror, you know, and they're like, I don't really see much of it here, and I'm like, yay, me. He's like, hear that, Dad? People are understanding my shit. It only took, oh fuck, God, I think the watch stopped. It only took like 8 years out of school for me to be accepted, you know. But yeah, like, that was really cool. Like, I probably said it in the vlog from last year, that I wish there was like a day before, like a night before setup time, only because I'm just really neurotic, and, you know, having to grab all your stuff in the morning, well, one, I have to like put on a full fuck off face. I don't have to, but I decide to, you know, put on a whole fucking face, speak to the gods and all that shit, then grab all my shit, because this con, like, you know, it's close to home, so I was like, I grabbed a chair, I had like 2 big ass suitcases and a tiny little suitcase and a backpack, you know, and then like Masami just got like her little suitcase, her little thing, you know? And I'm like, we're grabbing all this up, and you have like X amount of time to set up, which doesn't really take me that long to set up. But again, I'm like neurotic, so my brain is like, oh, you're given 3 hours or 4 hours or however long to set up. My brain is like, you've got 4 minutes to set up, you know? I'm like, ah! I'm just like, Paul, put the chair together, put these cubes together, gotta merchandise, you know? And it's just for my own, like, state of mind, just for that, I would just prefer if there was like a day before set up, and then the weekend of, like the Saturday morning of, whatever, go in, you just double checking your shit and you're good to go. Only so I can have just a little bit more sleep so that I can put this face on. That's it. That's my own thing. And I think this year they even said that they couldn't do setup any earlier because there was actually like an event. And I remember we were checking into the hotel and we saw like these, you know, regular adults with like name badges and stuff. And all I'm thinking is like, oh, you have no idea. I'm actually just like you, an adult, but I do this and I look like this, you know? Again, other than that, I love the con. I love it, and I'm glad it's gotten bigger. I'm glad more people have come. I was looking through Instagram, and like the line, people were waiting outside. It was like so, Mama's gotta take her pills. But anyway, so it's like the line, how long it was. Apparently they don't, like, I read one of the comments, someone's like, yeah, the line was really long, but within 10 minutes we were, you know, like, inside, yada yada. But I think that's like so crazy, that's so amazing that this little tiny little convention that a couple years ago I didn't even hear of until after the weekend was over, because I didn't go to year one, because it was funny, it was like after it was done, after that weekend was over, everyone's like, dude, where were you? We thought you'd be at this LGBT like convention. I was like, huh, what? And they're like, oh, well, it was advertised on Facebook. And I was like, oh, right, the social media I don't have, you know? Anyway, yeah, so, like I said, I enjoy it, I love it, I love seeing the familiar faces of, like, my costume buddies and other fellow artist friends and stuff. I like that convention because, of course, the all-inclusive shit, because everyone's included at this con, you know, and I love it. I love just how everyone could be themselves. You don't have to deal with, like, creeps, you don't have to deal with douchebags, like, everyone's just kind of there, like, you know, kind of like boosting one another, you know, like encouraging one another, and, you know, solidarity and all that, you know, fun stuff. So, like I said, I'm glad, you know, I definitely gonna do this, like, every year. It's one of my main staples, along with, like I said, Monsterpalooza, and, yeah, like, it's so much fun. And also, if you didn't know, FlameCon is all volunteer-based, and FlameCon itself is a non-profit, which is why their website is .org. They are a non-profit, which is why, like, the bigger tables are a little bit more pricier, but it goes for a good cause, obviously. But yeah, everyone who works there is all volunteer-based, and it's, like, pretty much the same people from the last couple of years, and everyone's so nice, so helpful, like, you know, like, throughout the weekend, we would get the volunteers come by, and they're like, you good? Do you need water? I can get you water. And it was like, it's right there. Like, where we were, like, the water thing was just, like, you know, like, 20 feet away, and we have, like, 3 people. We're just like, yo, I'll be right back and get some water. But it's great of them to be like, hey, if you need water, if you need anything, you know, I got you. You know, there's one part where I was just kind of like, I had a lot of people at the table, and they were, like, asking questions, and I was talking, and I was just kind of like, you know, like, feeling a little overwhelmed, because I was like, because I've been unemployed for a few weeks. Thank you, day job, for doing that. So I was just kind of like, oh, right, this is how it is where, you know, there's a lot of people. And one of the volunteers like, honey, you good? Do you need water? And I was just kind of like, oh, shit, it's probably on my face, like, people! Like I said, it was great. Loving people. And then, so every year, if you do vendor and all that stuff, again, because Saturday morning is set up, and of course then it leads to the con and all that stuff, Sunday morning they have a free breakfast, for the vendors and stuff. Last year, Paul and I ended up missing it. One, because I woke up a little late, so once I was done getting ready, there was no time to go to the breakfast thing, so I didn't tell him about it. But then Masami went to the breakfast thing, and she comes walking in with like a cup and then like a churro, and he's like, "What the fuck's that?" And she's like, "Oh yeah, there's a free vendor breakfast." And he just looked at me. You know, the boy loves his free breakfast. So this year I made sure, like, okay, we're going to the free breakfast. Like, I got the email, all that stuff. Make sure I'm gonna wake up in time. So we go, and it's cool because we just had to, like, go to, like, a different room and, like, a suite and all that stuff. You know, they're like, oh, there's donuts and coffee and blah, blah, blah. Cool. So we get there, but as we're heading there, people were like, oh, they're out of donuts, they're out of donuts. And I'm like, Masami has a gluten, like, allergy, so she can't have donuts. Paul's on a diet. I'm like, I like donuts, but, like, if there's no donuts, I'm not gonna, like, want to kill someone. So we get there and we're like, oh, okay, there's still like some fruit and some yogurt and like, ooh, some tea and all that stuff. So we're like, cool. And it's like very loud because like a lot of vendors are there just chit-chatting one another. It's like in one of the suites. And so we're there, we're like, okay, cool. And it was funny because I had like my makeup tray with me because we were heading back down. But then it was like perfect that I had like this like tray to put all like my food on. I was just like, da-da-da-da. Like I was like way too prepared for free breakfast. It's like, no, really, like this is where I, like this there's literally like, you know, like prosthetic adhesive stuck on here that I put a Webtoons napkin on top of so my banana doesn't get stuck on there. But so we kind of chilled like a little bit once we got our like food, and we noticed like a bunch of bags on the table. Bunch of bags that say Webtoons on it. And we're like, what's that? You know, and we're just like, you know, because some of them had like tissue on there, and we're like, okay, but some of them didn't. We were just like, okay, let's see what's in here. And in all honesty, what I thought would be in here would be, besides like a brochure to be like, oh, I'm drawing Webtoons, probably a lanyard, a wristband, a pin, a sticker, maybe a bottle of hand sanitizer, you know, like the shit that's usually what you get when you get freebies. So, like, so yeah, like there is like the Webtoons thing where it's like, here's our like current catalog, like advertising, of course, because they're one of the sponsors. But another thing in there which I was not expecting, which was, and I was like, we were like, oh, what's this? And it's a fucking portable charger. Well, it's empty right now because I actually have it in my backpack, but it's a fucking portable charger. And it's also a fast charger, too. So, I have, as my hands are shaking like I'm an old granny all of a sudden, I have a portable charger, and that's what I bring with me everywhere. But especially if I was going to do, you know, a convention, because I need to have my phone on with, like, my freaking 4G going off for my Square and all that shit and whatever not, like, you know, I need to have my juice. And then when we got this, I was like, oh, let me test it out. And there was a little juice in there, so I plugged it in, and then my phone could do fast charging, and it went like bloop, and it's like fast charging, da-da-da. And it was great, because I went from like 39% to 74%, you know, like from plugging it in, I was talking to someone, and then when they walked away, I was like, hey, Masami, my phone's at 75 already, and she's like, god damn, you know. So, was not expecting that. Thank you, Webtoons. That was so fucking amazing. I was like, I'm still like in shock, like, you know, yeah, it's like, whatever, like, super Chinese brand, because there's no English instructions and all that stuff, but at the same time, it's still kind of like, they didn't have to do that, you know what I mean? And also, like, was it Saturday evening, towards the end of the convention, they were like, hey, there's, like a movie screening of, I think, like a Studio Ghibli movie, I forgot which one they said, but they were like, oh, it's presented by Federator, and it's like, damn, y'all got Federator? You know, you got Webtoons, you got Federator. Also, another thing, like, again, this past weekend has just been so amazing. Kickstarter was another like sponsor us up, and I got the little Kickstarter brochure in there, and they offered free headshots. Like, it's such a minor thing, you know, but like, it's still so amazing because it's free headshots, and they weren't just kind of like they weren't like being like the DMV about it, where like I stood there and it was just like blank, and then you look and you're like, all right, that's it, we got it, and you're like, oh, you know, like, they took a bunch. Like, for me, they took a bunch with like my glasses on, my glasses off, and then like if you tilt your head this way and like this, then it's like the least amount of glare and all that stuff. And there was a lot of care from the people, you know, they were just like, one was like loving the colors and the makeup I was doing. They're like, yes, bitch, you know. So again, it's like there's so much care into this convention, and like so many people are doing it for free, and it's all volunteer based and nonprofit and all that shit. And it's just like, I love it. Like I said, I love it, and I can't wait to do it again. And it's great because I get to like see my buddies and all that stuff. Any other convention, it's like you see them and you're like, well, I have to go because the convention is fucking huge, and I'll see you later, you know, we got each other on Instagram, blah, blah. But there it was just like, we were just chilling at my table, we're just chit-chatting, we're talking about shit. Some of them were part of like the cosplay corner, so they were there like early in the morning, so we were kind of chatting before the con opened, which was also cool, you know, and we were just shooting the shit as always, and it was great, you know. Like I said, I'm definitely doing it again next year, no doubt about it. Yeah, next convention I'm doing is New York Comic Con. I'm like halfway done with both mine and Paul's costumes right now. Yeah, so other than that, I am just gonna be looking for work as I'm unemployed, and just donate to my Patreon. Alright, bye.